Hello everybody, I'm the Big Easy Chef. I'd like to show you how to make egg noodles. Now they're easy to make and they taste great. Now can you just imagine, say, a bowl of chicken soup with some nice homemade egg noodles in there? Wow, you did really good, because those are noodles we're going to be making today, and we'll throw them in that soup. Now these noodles are easy to make, they taste great, and they go with so many different things. So why don't you and I run over to the kitchen, see what's shaking, and get to baking. Okay, for these noodles, you'll want to start with 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour. Add this to your food processor. Now drop in 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Turn the processor on a little to mix the two together. Oh, say maybe 30 seconds. Just enough time to combine the flour and salt. Now dump in 1/4 cup of cool water, 1 teaspoon of olive oil. Drop in 2 large egg yolks and 1 large egg. Place the lid on your processor and give this a good blending. Now, you could mix all this by hand. It's the harder way, and you know me, I like the easy way. Your goal is to have a ball of dough in your processor. As you can see, this dough looks dry at this point, so let's add, about 1/8 cup of cool water. Put the lid back on and give the mix a good spin. Now it looks like our dough is starting to form a ball. Now the dough looks a little too wet. It isn't pulling away from the sides to form a nice ball. So let's stop and try adding a tablespoon of flour. Now we can give it another good mix. Okay, that's looking better, but it's still sticking to the sides. So let's stop the processor and let's say a couple pinches of flour. This should do the trick. Not only is this process mixing the dough, but it's also kneading the dough. You can make this dough by hand. However, using the processor is a lot faster and easier. And you know, I'm all about easy. Mix your dough for at least 2 minutes. This will knead the dough enough and it'll be ready to knead by hand. Flour your board with all-purpose flour. Now get the dough out of the processor. You can see this dough is pretty sticky. This is just the way you want your dough to look at this point. Start kneading your dough at this point, working in some of the flour. Now you can see the dough is getting stiff, and it isn't as sticky as it was when we first took it out of the processor. This is working perfect. Form the dough into somewhat of a ball and cover the dough with a towel, as it needs to rest. We're going to let the dough rest at least 30 minutes. This will give the dough time to relax and be nice and soft. Okay, now 30 minutes has passed. It's time to uncover this dough. You can see this dough isn't as tight as it was before. It's become more flexible. Okay, now we're going to divide the dough into 4 pieces, keeping out one and covering the rest with a towel. Flour this dough on both sides. Okay, let's start rolling out the dough. We want to roll out the dough thin. So we're going to keep rolling until the dough is nice and thin. As when these noodles cook, they're going to plump up and get thicker. We don't want the cooked noodles too thick. Roll the dough, turning it over and changing the position. As we're going to be rolling it for a while, roll the dough nice and thin. Roll the edges. We want this dough to be thin. As you can see, the edges are folding over. Straighten them out and keep rolling. Okay, with the dough nice and thin, cut the rough edges off and make a nice rectangle. You don't have to cut it perfect. A pizza cutter works fine for trimming this dough. The noodles won't be perfect in size. They'll have more of that rustic homemade look, which is fine. Now you want to place your cut noodles on a rack where the air can circulate on all sides. This cooling rack is perfect. Allow them to dry for at least 2 hours before cooking. We're going to be adding these egg noodles to some chicken soup. So let's see how that works out. Add the noodles about 10 minutes before the soup is cooked. This will allow the noodles to plump up and become tender, and for them to soak in some of that chicken broth. So now you can see the finished product. Not too bad. So there you have it. Now you know how to make egg noodles. They're easy to make, they taste great, and as you can see, they went great in that chicken noodle soup. They go great in a lot of other dishes. So why don't you try making some soon? Remember what they say, you are what you eat, so eat healthy. Until next time, I'm the Big Easy Chef.